The 2023 NFL Draft has been headlined by two things: four quarterbacks and the Carolina Panthers making a huge trade to go up from 9-1 to take the quarterback of their future. Nothing is ever a guarantee, especially in the NFL Draft, but one can reasonably assume there will be four quarterbacks taken in the top 10 of the draft, and with every draft process comes rankings and how this or that quarterback will lead a franchise for the next 10 years or set them back for the next few years. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing the 5 best quarterbacks in the 2023 NFL Draft. We will discuss their strengths, weaknesses, good landing spots, and everything in between. And without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Tennessee's Hendon Hooker. Hendon was recently mocked at pick 23 to the Minnesota Vikings in Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft, and while I don't think he will go that high, there is a lot to like about his game. Over the past 2 years, or since the time Hendon has started at Tennessee, because he was a transfer from Virginia Tech, he posted a touchdown to interception ratio of 58-5, and while it's not as simple as okay, he puts up good numbers, let's close the book on him and move on to the next prospect, he has proved over time he is a very efficient passer, and more often than not, is not putting the ball in harm's way, meaning the 58-5 ratio playing in the SEC of all conferences does not happen by accident. He has good footwork, he plays well within the pocket, and is very athletic. Is Hendon in the Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray level of runner or athleticism? No, but very few are. One thing Hendon does need to work on, especially at the NFL level, is getting down when he runs with the football. And another big negative you'll see with Hendon is he's already 25 years old, meaning he's very old for the draft process, which he is. But I don't think Hendon is going in the first round, and this is a quarterback we're talking about. With any other position, I would be worried, but it's not uncommon for quarterbacks to play until they're 37 or 38, or even further in some cases. So while I don't think Hendon should necessarily be a first-round pick, I don't think his age is anywhere close to as big of a concern as some people think. At minimum, Hendon should have a very long career as a backup because he has so many good traits. He has a good arm, he can run, and he does not turn the ball over. I like Hendon as a prospect quite a bit, and he comes in today's video at number 5. Next up is Will Levis of Kentucky, and for as many positives as there are about Levis, you can argue there are just as many negatives. I did a whole breakdown on Levis a couple of weeks ago now, and one of Levis's biggest strengths is without a doubt his arm talent. He can make any throw required, and there were times on tape where he would make a 60-plus yard throw look almost effortless. However, there were other times on tape where Levis would make a terrible throw or something so simple you would want to pull your hair out because of how simple of a mistake it was. The big one that comes to mind is during the Miami of Ohio game when Levis basically handed them an interception on the goal line when he should have threw this pass on a line to his 6'6" tight end. Levis is also very athletic, and there are reasons he has been compared to Josh Allen, and while I don't fully agree with those comparisons, I understand where they are coming from. The big thing that concerns me with Levis, and there's a difference between him and Hendon when I say this, is age. Hendon is not in the top 4 quarterback prospects, so him being a little older is not as critical to his draft profile. Levis, on the other hand, is 11 days younger than Vikings receiver Justin Jefferson, who is entering year 4. And Levis, unlike Hendon, never took that next step at the collegiate level. Yes, there are reasons for that, such as supporting cast and poor offensive game planning, but Levis never took the next step. And for as good as Levis can look at times, he can and will counter it with something equally as dumb almost instantly. The traits are there for Levis. He looks the part as a 6'4", 230-pound quarterback that can sling the ball a country mile. He can also run and make plays for the offense. But with Levis, the biggest thing for him, and hell, you can say this about any quarterback for that matter, but this especially applies to him, is where he gets drafted is largely going to determine how his NFL career goes. If he gets drafted into a bad situation, I don't think there's any way he could pull the franchise out, which, again, to be fair to him, not a lot of people could. To me, he is a boom or bust prospect, and he comes in at number 4. This may be a bold or hot take, but Anthony Richardson is up at number 3. If Richardson can reach his ceiling, then he will be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, which, of course, is a huge if. And like with Levis, there is a ton to like about Richardson's game. His arm is off the charts, and he has the arm strength to hit any throw from any distance. And his athleticism is in a different tier. Over the past few years, he has had rushing touchdowns of 45, 60, 73, 80, and 81 yards. In terms of athleticism, Richardson is a borderline Madden creative player. But there is also a lot to dislike about Richardson's game, and the biggest thing is consistency. Richardson will make a play that will have your head turn, then miss an easy throw that virtually every NFL starter makes. He will then make a throw maybe a handful have the capability to make that would very much be in the Mahomes and Allen tiers of throws. Oftentimes, Richardson will misread the coverage or even get locked into one player, and when he does that, he can and will throw into trouble. A huge difference between Richardson and Levis is Anthony is only 21 years old. He will be 22 during his rookie season, but if he can go to a place where he can sit and learn for a year, which is a huge ask in today's NFL, he can become a good quarterback over time. If Richardson is basically given a franchise from day one and told, you have to make this work, then I think he will be a disappointment as an NFL player, and think there is a good possibility he flames out in 2 or 3 years, or at least pulls a Geno Smith route and plays a backup role for the next 8 or 9 years. That has to be remembered with Richardson, is his ceiling is the highest in the class, but can he get there is something else entirely. Because he is a 6'4", 240-pound player, I think he will always have a place in the league, and another thing that only benefits him is if he gets in the open field as a runner, which he did quite a bit at Florida. He is not the same size, but substantially bigger than NFL DBs, and they do not want to tackle this freight train in the open field. His 40 was over a tenth of a second faster than what Cam Newton's was when he came out in the draft process back in 2011, and we saw the problems he gave defenses just from a running standpoint. And to be clear, Richardson is not close to the level of prospect Cam was when he came out that year, as Cam had a historical 2010 season at Auburn and carried them to a national title. Richardson has the talent to play at the NFL level and the talent to be a very good quarterback for some time, and the flashes are certainly there, but the question to the franchise that takes him is, can you unleash what he can become? Because if they can, he will be a damn good player for quite some time. But for now, Anthony comes in at number 3. Next up is CJ Stroud of the Ohio State Buckeyes. There's a huge narrative of Ohio State quarterbacks are a recipe for disaster and that they will become draft busts and the whole nine, but I don't think that's the case for Stroud. Could he become one? Yes, but in theory, everyone else could too for that matter. In full transparency, I was almost ready to write CJ off as a future draft bust before we saw him play the game of his life against Georgia. Because prior to the Georgia game, CJ was not great under pressure, as in the 2022 regular season, he was just 26 of 64, which translates to him completing just 40.6% of his passes while under pressure. And when he was kept clean, he was the CJ Stroud everyone knows, as he completed over 71% of his passes and threw 32 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. And I think CJ is a very, very tough player to predict how he will do at the NFL level, due in large part to this. I think he has the second highest floor of any quarterback in this class, but the question is, where exactly is that floor? Because CJ is a very accurate quarterback, and during the combine throwing period from quarterbacks to receivers, it was obvious CJ was the most accurate passer there. And in a lot of ways, he reminds me of a blend of Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins. And I know you may be thinking that's kind of underwhelming for a player to be taken potentially number 1 overall, but in terms of playstyle, I think that's CJ's best comparison. During the playoff game against Georgia, aka when the lights were shining brightest, he stepped up. He wasn't afraid to move out of the pocket and make plays, and it was almost like a dog was being fully let off the leash, because CJ didn't play within structure, and he basically said, "We are going to win this game because I am making plays." Unfortunately, they did not win the game, but within that, he threw for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns against the best defense college football had to offer. I think CJ will have a bit of a rough rookie year, as going to the NFL level is never easy, and we see that regularly with rookie quarterbacks, but I do think he will come into his own in year 2 and be even better in year 3. He has way too high of a floor to not like his game, and at minimum, I think he can be a league average quarterback for a long time, which is not meant to come across as negative, because being top 15 at anything in the world is insanely impressive. The question is, will CJ become a top 10 or top 5 quarterback? We'll see with time, but for now, he is the number 2 quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. And the number 1 quarterback in this class is Alabama's Bryce Young. Over the past few years, Bryce has been nothing short of spectacular for the Crimson Tide, as he was on his way to winning the 2021 Heisman and throwing for over 8,000 yards and 80 touchdowns during his collegiate career. His offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach was former Texans head coach Bill O'Brien, which to me at least only boosts Bryce's draft stock. He played in a pro-style passing attack at Alabama, and he routinely made plays. For a player who is just 21 years old, Bryce plays well beyond his years and has very, very good pocket awareness and the athleticism to escape for that matter too. I understand why the NFL has their concerns about Young, which is strictly from a size standpoint, because everything on tape points to him being a long-term starting quarterback. Does he make mistakes? Yes, but it's not an exaggeration to say every NFL player, or person for that matter, does too. Even when Bryce was under pressure, he wasn't bad. The raw numbers aren't going to sound good, so there is context to this, but he finished 43 of 101 for 815 yards and had 7 touchdowns during his final year at Alabama. While he completed just 42.6% of his passes, the big difference between him and Stroud is Bryce threw the ball away 19 times while under pressure to Stroud's 6. And when factoring in drops too, Bryce's adjusted completion percentage under pressure was 67.6% to Stroud's 46.6%. I don't want this to come across like Bryce is a perfect prospect, because he's not, but I think he is a damn good player, and while the size is a concern, this isn't anything new to him. He's been dealing with this his whole life, and he knows how to play around this. And for that matter, if a quarterback is taking a direct hit from someone like Vita Vea, is 5 or 10 pounds going to make a difference, whether it's Bryce Young or somebody else? 25 or 30 would, yes, but there are plenty of lighter quarterbacks in today's NFL, and that hit from Vita is going to hurt regardless. I think there is far too much being made out of his size, and if he were CJ Stroud's size, which isn't overly huge, he would be far and away the number 1 overall pick. But Bryce Young to me is the best quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. In terms of potential, I think Anthony Richardson has the highest, followed by Bryce Young, then Will Levis, then Stroud, and then Hendon Hooker. And the big thing to remember with Richardson and Levis is, can they unleash the potential? Ultimately, I think Stroud will be a better quarterback at the NFL level than those two, but the tools are there for AR and Levis. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and help the growth of the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.